Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on into the Rooted podcast. Tim Stromel coming to you from our beautiful Rooted production studios out here in chilly Denver, Colorado. I'm wearing a shirt inside, but trust me, it's chilly outside. Thanks for being with us, be it on iTunes, SoundCloud, or the host website, stayrooted.com. We're thrilled to have you along with us. Quick note, by the way, reminding you to check out our web series, Rooted TV, as we're picking up a ton of traction there. More distribution channels, it seems, week by week. And we're working hard to make sure that content is entertaining, it's funny, it's informative, it's different from other stuff you might be consuming or watching right now. By the way, big thanks to Cannabis Club TV, High Times TV, who we just launched on, very excited about that, and the new Harvest TV for carrying our TV show. We're absolutely pumped. If you haven't heard of Harvest TV, by the way, it just launched, and they're adding TVs into your local hydro store that will play our show, all other kinds of content, so keep an eye on it next time you're at your local hydro store. If they don't have it or you work at a hydro store, hit us up. We'll get you in connection with the Harvest TV guys. They install the TVs, play great content. You control the content too. Very exciting stuff. Now, I've been teasing a lot on the show lately, and keeping with that, I'll let you know we have some really cool guests coming up. Not just today's guest. He's coming up in just a minute, but some industry legends. Now, I don't want to give any names away. I don't want to jinx it until those interviews are in the can. So stay tuned for more information. Check out at Stay Rooted on Instagram or our socials at Stay Rooted, and we'll tease stuff out there. So make sure you go follow that. As for this show, we'll be exploring something we have yet to discuss on the show and something that you should find super interesting. And that's the idea of pure solventless extraction. Now, over the past decade, the health movement in the United States has grown exponentially, with people wanting to take care of their bodies, watch what they consume, and following along that line of logic, one would think cannabis would be no different, but varying regulations from state to state, or even really from country to country, means there's no real consistency in the industry in terms of best practices or procedures. It's just a lot of people arguing and giving their opinion, and because of that, there's an ongoing debate on how safely to extract THC crystals for an end consumer to consume, right? So I went out and got Ben Britton. Ben, I'm saying your last name correct, right? It's so easy.
That's right. You got it.
I love that. I love when there's an easy name. I don't have to struggle through it. He's the founder of Pure Pressure, an award-winning company that makes arguably the finest rosin press for extraction in the cannabis space, and a new product as well we'll want to talk to you about. We'll ask Ben why solventless extraction is the clear winner of this debate, how the Pure Pressure machines work, and why they've won awards with their technology, and how a guy like Ben, a college engineer who decides to jump into the cannabis space just about right out of college to become one of the youngest founders in the cannabis space, and certainly one of the youngest that we've interviewed here on the show. Talk to him about all of that in just a second. Before we get started, quick shout out to our sponsors, our awesome sponsors over at Green Bros, home of the world's premier dry harvesting solutions. From small scale cultivations all the way up to commercial grows, Green Bros dry trimmers, trichome extractors, destemmers, sorters, precision batchers, and more. Want to save you time, money, and labor? Check them out, greenbros.com, or call 844-DRY-TRIM to schedule a free demo in your area today. That's 844-DRY-TRIM. You can also check out Green Bros at the NECANN Convention in Boston, March 22nd to 24th, Lift in Toronto, June 6th to 9th, or NCIA San Jose, the 22nd and 24th of July. So some big shows coming up for them. If you're in the area, make plans to stop by the booth. Okay, without long last, we will welcome in Ben Britton, the founder of Pure Pressure. You can check out their website, gopurepressure.com. Ben, thanks for joining us and sticking through that long introduction. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. We're pumped to get this going. I've been talking to you for a while now. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I'm wearing the Pure Pressure shirt.
Oh, it's the first thing I noticed. I love it. It looks great.
And it's a great contrast with the background. I like to wear the bright colors, and I was looking through my closet. I'm like, what do I wear today for this guy? And I saw your shirt, immediately kicked it off in my head. Now, normally I kick off the show with a little bit of background about the guest so people know who's on. But you're a young guy. It should be easy. It should take no trouble at all. You graduate CU Boulder out here in Colorado, just a stone's throw from where Pure Pressure is now located. You get a degree in mechanical engineering and then you go straight into the cannabis space, or did you get a job, like a regular job, like everyone always refers to it. What did you do straight out of college?
I had a real job at one point. It was a lot less stressful than this one. I was in the corporate world for a little while. I did almost 4 years, or 5 years, I guess that is, doing a lot of composites and automation, industrial automation, rotomolding, filament winding, that kind of stuff. And realized that was a great experience and a lot of fun. I learned a lot, but I really wanted to do something bigger and something that had an impact. I guess an impact not just on cannabis. That I didn't really need it to be a cannabis thing, but I wanted to make an impact on the community. I wanted to make an impact on kind of everyone's well-being and health, and that I feel like there's a lot of engineering that just goes to waste these days, and I wanted to make sure I didn't fall into that trap.
Man, 5 years. I thought your timeline was a little tighter. I definitely want to talk to you about your evolution into the space in just a minute. But one of the things I think is unique about you is you go to college at CU Boulder as this industry is kind of emerging in front of your eyes. You're in college at the time. You're not in the industry. So you were kind of in it without being in it, if that makes sense. You had a front row seat. So what did you think about the industry when you were in college? Did you ever think you'd work in it?
I certainly joked about it. My college self would be very proud of me right now. I've always been a consumer and of cannabis products. I've found my own uses for it and for my own well-being, and that held true for all of my college years. Definitely helped me get through the grind of engineering school, and I'm always a tinkerer and a builder and kind of making different things. And that was no different in college, making different devices. And I made bubble hash. I did all that stuff in college, just kind of for fun. Never really thought about it being a reality. And it wasn't until an old friend of mine, Josh Rutherford, actually my business partner now, came up to me at a party and started talking about solventless extracts within cannabis and rosin pressing in particular, and that really, at the time I was doing consulting and machine design consulting, and I really started to get interested in what he was talking about. So I went over to his place and we started tinkering around with some things and seeing what's being done now and where can this go? And I remember one of the things that Josh said that stuck with me to this day about how simple rosin is to make, and how, a process in its simplest form is hard to rid with different technology, whatever it is. Everything in time tends to work itself down to the simplest form of that process. And so for me, looking at extracts, cannabis, and like, how is this going to hold up with the test of time? It just seemed to me like a no-brainer that this wasn't going to go away. And if I can just using simple mechanics and some filtration and really some technique, but all I'm doing is just squeezing the oils out of the plant, the essence that's already there. I just didn't think that was something that would disappear ever. I thought it was something that not only would it not disappear, but that it could be turned into something much bigger than it was. And that was kind of our goal and where things sprouted.
Ben, I led off the show talking about the health movement and how it relates to cannabis as well. With the idea of solventless extraction specifically, can you tell me, and for those listening, what is solventless extraction? And then maybe what other methods are out there? So give us some context about what that is.
Yeah, so kind of like a 1,000-foot view. It's pretty interesting, actually, because the cannabis world started out with extraction methods that were typically using solvents, which is not uncommon in process industry. I mean, butane extraction is used in all sorts of perfumes, everything under the sun can be extracted with that. And it was no surprise that cannabis went to that solution, and I still believe that it has its place. But I guess to back up even further, we talk about extraction as a whole. And we're pulling elements out of the plant. We grow a plant and we're trying to capture certain aspects of it, whether that's in consistency or texture, whatever we're trying to do with it. And there's many different ways to skin a cat. So, you can come in and use hydrocarbons to dissolve those oils and the THC and whatever you're looking for. You're dissolving everything down and then stilling off your solvents. That is one method. You've got CO2 extraction, and the list goes on that side of the house. And then on the solventless side, you're coming in and you're just using typically filtration, mechanical separation to pull out the elements that you need, but without changing the chemical composition, without dissolving and re-solidifying or stilling or cooking off any of these volatiles. So it's a different approach. I think one of the best ways to explain it is, let's say we wanted to make apple juice. And right now, if we make apple juice with a butane extractor, we're taking the whole tree, we're grinding it up, we shove it in a column, we run butane over it, we cook off the butane, we pull out what we think is the juice and reconstitute it, and that's how we're making apple juice. So solventless extraction, we come with a totally different approach. If we start with, let's say, the bubble hash process or ice water hash, where we're stripping the trichome heads that contain all of the resinous portions of the plant before we do anything else. So that's the same as going out into your field and picking your apples. And then we're able to sort those apples, take the ones we like, and then squeeze those and make our juice that way. Now, not only do we have juice that was made only from apples and not the entire tree, but we have different grades that we can then separate out and sell for different products and different prices.
So it's the equivalent of buying a not from concentrate juice versus a 100% like fresh squeezed orange juice.
Exactly. It's like walking out into your yard and grabbing that orange versus, getting one that was, who knows? I don't even know. Maybe that's that.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about the other ways.
Imagination fill.
I'm much more about the fresh squeezed. So I love that metaphor. I think it makes sense to people that are listening because when I hear solventless extraction, or really when I hear extraction at all, I never really understood the differences between all of them. And so I figured if I had the question, I know my listeners probably do too. So getting you on here and getting this going is definitely, going to help people that I think want to know more about it. Okay, cool. So let's get to, I let off the show talking about the health movement. We talked about that. Now, in your pre-interview, I thought this was interesting. You mentioned building the prototype Pikes Peak rosin press. At the time, it blew the competition out of the water, was something that you mentioned. Why was it so much better than what other people were doing? Like, what were they doing wrong? Or was it just the difference between solventless and with solvents?
No, so, I'll be fully open. I had and still have much less experience with solvent extraction, and my expertise remains within solventless. My business partner has lots of experience on the solvent extraction side. And so we pair nicely together in that respect. When it comes to the health benefits, I guess, could you repeat your question one more time? Sorry, Tim.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I was just saying with the development of the Pikes Peak rosin press, and you mentioned building the prototype, and when you brought the prototype to some people, they were blown away, and you said that it, blew out of the water a lot of the other options in the space. So I was just wondering, why is yours so different?
So when we first started, we used some equipment that was already in the cannabis space being used for solvent extraction, other rosin presses, and we wanted to see what was out there, test it. We had some equipment, so we ran some baseline numbers. I was just really trying to pick apart the process from the beginning and see what are the pieces that are actually driving this. And when in rosin in particular, it comes down to we're putting a filter bag or a pouch, if you can imagine, and just filling it with whatever raw material we want, whether that's flour, keef, or bubble hash. And that material has this resin inside of it, but it also has inert plant material, fats, lipids, whatever you can imagine inside this bag. And we want to pull out just those oils. So we have to do a mechanical filtration, and those oils are solid at room temperature. So we have to use heat in order to lower the viscosity of the oil. And what we're doing is we use the heat to lower the viscosity to make it more fluid, right? And once that's more fluid, now it's mobile. So we're using pressure to force it out of a filter bag. And this is where everything started to fall apart. So everything on the market was a square bag, and a square bag has a huge surface area with very low perimeter area, or perimeter length, I should say. So when you've got two plates that are in contact with your bag, the top and bottom surfaces are completely blocked by that plate. And so the only place for the oil to really escape is out the perimeter of the bag. So I just did some simple math and created equations to calculate the area to perimeter, the perimeter to area ratio of a bag. And then we started by designing a bag that had the highest perimeter to area ratio, and built our first prototype press around that principle only. We had no pressure control. We had temperature control, and that yielded a 6x improvement over the previous machines that we had tested on the same material. And we didn't expect those results, and we also didn't expect to have leaps and bounds beyond that, because we were instantly dealing with full yield and full extraction. We were at the limitations of our raw material at that point already. So as time went on, our customers came back to us with feedback, all sorts of information on pressure ramping, temperature ramping, and we started to realize that we've started to create a tool that had much more potential than even we knew about. And so as time's gone on, we've just really tried to listen to our customers and look for as much feedback as we can possibly get, because everybody uses this thing in a different way. It's a tool. And so we take this and we try to act as the filter and take all the information in, take all the good pieces and the pieces that fit together, and then put it right back into our products. And that's kind of where our presses have developed to now, where you can pretty much put any raw material in any filter bag, put it between our plates and hit go, and the press will do the whole thing automated.
And you know what I love about what you said? It was towards the end of your answer. You talked about how you listen to the customer and you're able to be kind of fluid in your design. And if someone brings you a great idea, you don't shy away from it. You can implement it because you are mobile. And I was fortunate enough to go to your facility a couple of times, check out what you guys have going on. You run a lean facility, and I know that you're still very hands-on in the design process. And that's got to be something that as you expand, you're looking to maintain, right? Like that ability to be fluid in your design.
This is a conversation I have every week with my team. The reason that we've been as successful as we have is because we don't look at new information as something to scare us or to feel like that is something that's blocking us or in the way of our product succeeding or an obstacle. We look at it as an opportunity. And every day there's a new opportunity to grow and to change, and we're constantly changing the parts that are in our press to make them better and longer lasting. And granted, we don't even have quality issues, but better is where, if you can do, continuous improvement never ends. And so we just try to keep that philosophy. And it's a really infectious philosophy when every single person believes in it. And, everyone in my facility can talk to you about rosin pressing. Everyone in my facility can talk to you about concentrates. And that's because we all talk about it all day, every day.
Yeah, and I've heard entrepreneurs say stuff like good isn't better, better is better, and using better parts, especially in this industry, and the need to stay ahead of regulation really plays a part, I think, in up-leveling your design before a need hits the market and you're forced into it. I've seen other companies do that too. Ben, when you design and build the Pikes Peak rosin press, then you follow that with the Longs Peak rosin press, kind of out of left field, but both of those are named after mountains out here in Colorado. Why did you choose to do that?
Well, I'm definitely an outdoorsman. As soon as my work week is over, I'm heading straight out to the mountains, whether that's fishing, skiing, mountain biking, whatever it is. So I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to our home state and just show that we're real people too. We come in every day and all we do is live and breathe solventless extraction. That's our life. And,
real quick, again, I want to let everyone know, sorry to cut you off, Ben, I'll get right back to you. This podcast brought to you by our interview sponsors over at Green Bros, home of the world's premier dry harvesting solutions. And if you haven't heard, Green Bros just partnered with a new company called Purigen to bring you the box. This thing is absolutely amazing. It was originally developed for tissue sterilization for surgical implications. Like if you needed an ACL replaced and you had to get a cadaver ACL, they would literally sterilize your new ACL inside of this box. That is, well, not the specific boxes for cannabis, but this exact technology would be used for that, and then it'd go in your body. That's how safe this technology is. The box's remediation technology can eliminate mold or other microbial organisms in your harvest. It can also rehydrate your flower if it's become too dry, or even infuse terpenes into your flower, allowing you to create a one-of-a-kind flavor profile that is truly unique to your company, all using reactive oxygen technology, meaning no harmful microwaves, no radiation, no changes to the actual DNA of the flower like the other options on the market. You got to see this thing to believe it. Just simply put, hit up Green Bros at 844-379-8746 or info@greenbros.com for more information. We also just did a podcast with Alan Novotny, the CEO of Purigen, the brains behind the box, and he talked about how everything works. So if you said, or if you're listening to this and you're like, Tim, there's no way it can do that. That sounds stupid. I doubt it. I'm not a believer. I'm a troll on what you're saying. Go listen to that podcast. Don't take it from me. Go listen to Alan's interview. All right. We're talking with Ben Britton. He's the founder of Pure Pressure. You can check him out. GoPurePressure.com. We're talking about solventless extraction. We just broke down for you what that is. So that's a big question to answer. I guess as we transition out of that break, I got to bring it up because it's important. You guys got some cool stuff going on with Green Bros. I know they make a Alchemist Trichome extractor, which can sift, and that machine can pair well with your rosin presses. I've heard through the grapevine, I'm not going to allude to anything specific, but you guys are doing some research and development on some new products and stuff like that. So how does a partnership like that come about for you and Green Bros?
Well, yeah, we've actually always looked up to Green Bros as a role model. Honestly, they started right before us, a few years before us, and kind of took a really good approach to U.S. engineering and manufacturing for the cannabis space. And it's very task-oriented equipment, and we've used it ourselves, and we've just found them to be a great partner for us because they handle the cultivation aspect right on up to where we take over in the extraction industry.
Exciting stuff, man. Now, I know we've talked about your rosin presses throughout this. We talked about solventless extraction. What is rosin? Can you break it down? Like, give me the layman term, even compare it to something else, but what is it?
Yeah, so this can get really confusing because you walk into a dispensary these days and they're talking rosin, resin. I mean, it just gets to be too much. So rosin, simply put, is oil that was made by using heat and pressure and filtration. So we're just squeezing the oils out, literally squeezing them out with a hot press. That is rosin. And then you can get into live rosin, meaning that it was made from a fresh frozen material, typically turned into bubble hash. That's what makes it live. And, it goes on from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. So at its core, I guess, since rosin is the oil and the extract, like how it's extracted, in theory, it's made up of pure trichomes, right? That's exactly what you're trying to get to that end product. So there's nothing else in it.
So, So I guess if you were to hop inside of that filter bag while the process is happening, you'd be bursting trichome heads and liquefying the oil within them, mobilizing that oil and forcing it out of the filter bag. But within the filter bag, we're trying to keep trichome heads, stalks, and any other plant material.
That's interesting. So how do you do that? Like, you just burst them with the pressure and the heat, and so the actual trichome head itself, like picture like a little tube, I guess, at home. There's like little tubes on the end of the cannabis flower. You see them as crystals when you look at like a nug. That little crystal is what you're trying to pop and get the oil out of?
Yeah, I mean, if you can think about it kind of like a balloon that's filled, or a pod that's filled with
like
oil.
A water balloon.
It's exactly it. It's a water balloon, and that water balloon is on what we call a stalk, the trichome stalk, and then you've got the head, and all of the oil that we're going for resides within that trichome head. So we're bursting those and pushing them out, and that's where it's really interesting how you can vary your output oil depending on the different inputs that you put in. I would venture to say that we have probably one of the most versatile pieces of equipment in a laboratory setting for cannabis because of all of the different things that you can do with it. If I just take flower that's cured and dried, I can rehydrate it and put it in a bag and press it and have consumable oil in less than 2 minutes. That's one option. Now let's say you've got all of this trim that you've piled up and you have no idea what you're going to do with it. And so that's when the alchemist comes into play from Green Bros. You keef and sift out all of those trichome heads that are residing on that trim, because if you look at those, you'll see those trichome heads, they reside in a much lower concentration on trim leaves, but they're there, and they're certainly not worth throwing away. So we sift them out, and then we can press that keef. And when we press keef, we use a finer mesh, typically a 25 or a 36 micron mesh. And that helps keep those trichome heads inside the filter bag while letting only the liquid oil that we've mobilized out of the bag. And then kind of the premium space right now for solventless is taking bubble hash. And I only say it's the premium area because this is where people have had the most success right now. Consistently making super high quality solventless products. I've also consumed some phenomenal sift solvent concentrates, some phenomenal flower solventless concentrates. But bubble hash is another beast, and that's where you're taking these flowers or trim or whatever it is, and we're putting it in water. And the water is going to absorb into that plant matter, and it makes the plant very nimble and flexible. But this water we tend to keep cooled with either a chiller or ice, and we keep it around 35 degrees Fahrenheit, right above freezing. And that temperature makes these trichome heads very brittle. So as we could agitate our water, the trichome heads are snapping off at the stalk because of this flexible plant material moving around. So you imagine kind of a washing machine of a sort, where it's just agitating this plant material. All these trichome heads fall down to the bottom. They sink. They're heavier than water, and we filter them out of the water, and we collect them and dry them typically with the freeze dryer, but there's many other ways to do that. And once we have these trichome heads, now what we've done is we've plucked the fruit, like I said earlier when we were making apple juice. So that's step one. We've plucked the fruit. Now we can grade them out by size. We tend to find anywhere from 25 to 120 micron screens will catch just about all of your bubble hash or your ice water hash. And that 120 micron will tend to have stocks included. Then you get into your 90, your 73, and your 45 micron tend to be whole trichome heads. This is your premium product. It's the whole apple with no stems or anything like that. And then you get down into your 25 micron, and those tend to be broken heads that were damaged either in the pre-processing before you started this bubble hash process or during the bubble hash process if you were a little too rough during the agitation. So we're now able to separate our fruit by quality, and then we can further refine them in the rosin press. And one thing that we found to be really unique with bubble hash, and we're trying to work with Green Bros on succeeding in taking these trichome heads using the sifting process as well without damaging them. That tends to be a little trickier. Just because you don't have that water medium to protect those trichome heads. They're very delicate, very fragile. So what we're trying to do is, I guess I should back up here. Once we have our bubble hash, now we've got the whole fruit, and it opens some new doors, because if you have undamaged trichome heads that haven't been tampered with, they're kept at freezing temperatures. They're stored at freezing temperatures so that they're not volatilizing, and you're not losing terpenes at room temperature. This stuff is so oily that at room temperature, it'll tend to melt down. If you just laid these trichome heads out on a piece of parchment paper in a room, it would melt into a blob. And it's pretty interesting. So what we can do once we have these things is we can then do some fractional separation. And fractional separation is where we start to really shine with a rosin press. And what we're able to do is take advantage of the different melting points of the oils that reside within that trichome head, and we can pull them out one at a time. So we do that by literally pulling out the lowest melting point oils first, and then we go low, medium, high, and we work our way up. And now what we're doing is we're able to separate out THCA, we're able to separate out terpenes, and we're able to separate out a lot of the fats and lipids and stuff that still get pushed through that you don't necessarily want in some of your concentrates. Those fats and lipids also tend to be the same things that create issues with stabilization of your oil increasing the shelf life of your oil. Or let's say you're making a solventless vaporizer pen. A lot of those fats and lipids, if you were to just take flower rosin and put it into a vaporizer pen, that would solidify at room temperature. That would not be a stable product over time and wouldn't work for a dispensary to fill a cartridge and let it sit for a month on the shelf. That's not an option, not yet anyway. So with this fractional separation, we're able to kind of pull out all the key elements here, reconstitute them, and make some of the finest vaporizer pens and concentrates that are also extraordinarily stable.
Ben, someone listening to this buys your machine and they want to do this. They want to separate into the different stages. Do they get instructions on what stages or what your temperature's at? Like, how does that work?
I wish that I could make it as simple as one recipe rules them all. So I've tried to get as close to that as I could. And what we've done is on every press that we make comes with preset recipes for each raw material. Those are going to be very conservative recipes that are going to work for most people. That being said, this is the caveat that everyone hates hearing. Everybody's material is different. Even the same strain grown in two different places isn't going to be the same. So what we try to do is provide the most versatile tool for extraction so that no matter what you're starting with, you can find that sweet spot. And we give you as much training as we can on our YouTube channel, in our user manual, and on phone support. And if you need anything beyond that, we've also got a consulting portion of the business called Pure Cannabis that we can come in and design for you a solventless extraction lab from the ground up.
Exciting stuff. Now, Ben, this industry is attracting big money. Everyone knows, and everything is getting more competitive. So do you feel like you've had enough of a jump start to stay ahead of maybe new businesses that are coming in? Or how do you stay ahead of those new people that are going to try to come in and kind of replicate maybe what you're already doing?
Well, see, that's a great question because I get asked this all the time. Aren't you worried about everyone ripping you off? And the answer is no, because what we're doing here is continuously improving. So every day we come into work with a new set of eyes, with fresh perspective. And so as long as we're keeping that mentality, I have absolutely no concerns about our future. And I feel like it's really promoting the education and the knowledge and bettering the cannabis community, and the success of the business and the products and everything else kind of follows in its footprints. And if you build that foundation properly, then it tends to work out well for everybody.
Ben, you guys have two new products that you're in the stages of releasing. I'm going to talk about those in just a second. So everybody stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. But I got to talk about this. You're young. Wait, how old are you?
I am 31.
31, so still a young buck. Now, one thing I've gotten to know about entrepreneurs throughout my years of interviewing them is not every idea is a home run. A good entrepreneur once told me that if you have 10 ideas and just 3 of them are good, then you're absolutely killing it. That being said, you're 31. How does it feel to be kind of hitting a home run with your first venture?
It's crazy. I definitely had a lot of skepticism a lot of the way, and it's never really felt like a home run, I guess. For me, it just seems like this is part of the process. This is what I do. I'm a developer. I'm a creator and a tinkerer. And so in my mind, there is no finish line. There is no like sitting back and saying, yep, we've done it. Now we're done. So it's interesting hearing that from the outside coming in. But from our perspective, we're just doing what we do best and try to do that every day.
I mean, it's got to be crazy having no prior experiences like scaling a company or releasing a product to market. There's got to be a ton of times when you're sitting there, you know, not normal, but more experienced entrepreneurs would say, okay, years ago I did this, maybe let's do this time. But you don't have that. How do you deal with that? Is there someone that you go to and ask these questions to when something comes up?
Yeah, actually, that's not, it's not someone, it's everyone. I like to think of myself as kind of a funnel that's taking all of these pieces of information from all around the world and just putting it in one spot. But by no means am I the one that does it all. I in fact feel like I do less than anybody here, but kind of organize the structure of it all. So it's pretty interesting, but I don't know.
Now, what sort of advice or life lessons, I guess, has this project taught you? And I'm going to take the one you just said when it's listen to everybody. But I know that there must be something throughout this, last couple of years you've been working on this project where you've kind of learned, okay, that worked.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a firm believer in the scientific method. I think if you apply that in products, in life, and just trying to be a good person, then good things happen. And with our products and with everything that we do, we come with an open mind. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then we learned something. So, I guess my advice to everybody out there would be work hard, play hard, and just follow your heart. Try to do best for everybody out there, and good things will come.
Speaking of upcoming or coming up with ideas in products, Pure Pressure is launching a couple of new products in 2019. Some cool things. I already mentioned the Pikes Peak rosin press, the Longs Peak rosin press. Those are a little bit more commercial, right? For your kind of your actual extraction labs or your grows. But you're launching the Helix press, which is targeted more towards the home grower, right?
Yeah, we're super excited about our Helix launch. My lead designer, Kyle Manuel, did a lot of development on this. The two of us worked on this for a better part of a year and a half. We're extremely proud of it. It's an all manual press that can be plugged into any 110 outlet or 240 outlet, either one, and it draws less than 2 amps of power. It requires no air compressor. You just turn the handle, and with this, you have all the control and all the capabilities of our commercial extraction equipment. We use all the same firmware and electronics, so you're getting a real lab grade machine for less than $4,000 that you can at home make any one of these concentrates that we talked about today. And that's something that we're pretty excited about. It's also got a live load cell readout, which to the layman is just a scale. So we can see our actual force that we're pressing with as we go. It's got guided recipes, so it knows where you're at and where you should be. And this thing really walks you through the process from start to finish.
And to put that into perspective, I've seen your Longs Peak and your Pikes Peak. Those machines, you need air compression to help with the process. And then it also has the touch screen where you have the programs and like you said, the recipes. So we scale that down to the Helix, more the home model. Instead of the air compressor, there is kind of like a giant X on the top of the machine that you would rotate. How easy is that thing to rotate?
Yeah, it's very, very easy. We spent lots of time developing this. We put a lot of engineering. There's more engineering in the Helix press than there is in the Pikes and the Longs combined. Really, truly, there is. We had to do a lot of development to get we wanted a really tactile feedback. So we wanted to make sure that the operator didn't feel disconnected from the process because it was a manual thing. So it took a lot of development to make something that was extremely low friction and easy to turn. But also, once you do that, you give the user incredible mechanical advantage. So now you have to make it extremely strong. And when you try to do that in a small, lightweight package, you're up against a challenge. And I think we did a pretty good job with it. We were able to make a press that weighs 60 pounds and is rated for up to 10,000 pounds of continuous use. We've tested the press to 26,000 pounds, and basically at 26,000 pounds, the bolts rip in half, and you can replace them and put it back together, and it still works. So it's almost indestructible. But it was a fun project, and we're really proud of where we came with it, and I think it'll be a really big home run for a lot of home users, as well as an R&D machine for these larger facilities that don't want to tie up production equipment.
When does that come out?
It is ready to go. We are building them right now. Orders can be entered and shipped within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I would say.
Wow, very exciting. So by the time you're hearing this at home, go order yourself a Helix if you're at home, or if you're in a grow or, part of a cultivation company, check out the Longs Peak or the Pikes Peak press. Again, go purepressure.com. Ben, perhaps just as interesting, and only 2 more questions for you because I know you got to go. Perhaps just as interesting and exciting for you is the hash washing equipment, which is a process I've never heard of. You already kind of talked about it and how it works. But why go to that SKU? Because, everything you've done so far has been rosin press and you're killing it. So why go to the hash washer?
Well, everything's been out of necessity. Our customers tell us what they need. They tell us which products work, what doesn't, what exists, what doesn't exist. And we've been very fortunate to have I think the best customer basis in the world. And so we've taken their feedback and a lot of the input material for our rosin press is ice water hash. So, the next natural progression was to improve that process, because currently it is being done in widely around the world in trash cans, plastic trash cans. And so a lot of people use the Brute trash cans from Home Depot. So we thought we'd play on that, and we call our new washing system the Bruteless washer. And it's a fully stainless food grade vessel with sanitary welds, fittings, and insulation. So it'll cut your ice consumption at least in half. And we're working on a full closed loop ice water hash extraction system that we're hoping to be done by, I don't like to put numbers like this out, but end of the year.
So you're hoping for end 2019?
That's right.
That's exciting stuff, man. Already it sounds a lot more sanitary than a garbage can.
I hope so. We tried to go the pharmaceutical route with it, so everything is super high quality, no nooks or crannies for mold to grow. Because when you're dealing with water and no chemicals to kill that kind of stuff, you got to be clean.
So, and that'll obviously be completely solventless as well. I don't even know where you would use a solvent, but that's continuing with the line of solventless that you're already on.
Exactly. The only thing the plant touches in this scenario is ice and water. So that kind of completes the circle for us. We got everything we need right there. This last question is, what does the future look like for Pure Pressure? But I mean, you just released the Helix, the consumer level rosin press. You have the hash washer coming out by the end of the year. I imagine that's where most of your R&D has gone lately. So what does the future look like? What does Pure Pressure look like a year or 5 years from now? I don't know if I can answer that, because if I were to answer that question a year ago, I certainly wouldn't have told you where we are today. It's been very unpredictable, but that's kind of the fun part of it. We just try to move and flow with the punches. I'd say one of the things that we're really interested in working on is the sifting process with Green Bros. We want to make a sift that is just as high of a quality as the bubble hash that we're able to produce right now. So that's a big one that we're going to attack. And honestly, whatever we try to ebb and flow with the industry and whatever people need. So as it's an ever changing landscape, and we're just going to be flexible and keep doing what we're doing.
Last question before I get you out here, and I just thought of it. Now, the Pikes Peak and the Longs Peak are both pretty good models for commercial size. Have you had any issue or any questions in terms of creating a larger machine?
Yes. So before we do that, we will be working on automation on the loading, unloading, and collection, as well as filling processes, both before and after the rosin press, so that all of those customers that have our Pikes and Longs Peaks can add on these automated features, and you can take your $7,000, your $9,000 rosin press and turn it into a hands-off production machine.
And at that point, the capacity of the machine becomes almost a moot point, because you can sit there and just automated production at almost 24 hours a day. Wow.
In and out. That's right. Yep.
That's crazy. His name is Ben Britton. He is the founder of Pure Pressure. Again, go check him out. GoPurePressure.com. I think we hit on a lot of things. Fantastic information. We talked to you about how solventless extract and rosin is made and what it is. So now you know those things. We talked about some really cool technology they're doing that a lot of the industry is going another way. And to speak to Ben's point, neither one of us are pure experts on every type of extraction out there, but we can tell you about solventless extraction. And when you talk about health, you talk about the health movement in America, the more pure things you're putting in your body, the better. So certainly we're behind something like Pure Pressure because we just enjoy purity and it's in their name. Ben, thank you so much, man. I've appreciated it. I've seen you a couple times over the last couple of months. I know I'll be able to get to see you again soon, so I look forward to it, man. Thanks for joining the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Tim. It's been a pleasure. Thanks to everybody else too. And thanks to all our customers. Appreciate it.
Again, go check them out. GoPurePressure.com. That's going to do it for us today on the podcast. Big reminder to go check out Rooted TV. You can find it on Cannabis Club TV, High Times Television. We just launched there. Also, Harvest TV inside of Hydro stores, or of course on our website, stayrooted.com. But my name has been Tim Strobel, reminding you one more time to work hard, be humble, and stay rooted. We'll see you next time.